Hello, welcome back to the Crafty Organizer. If you're new, welcome to my channel. If you're returning, it is always so nice to see you. This week we're going to go over the dining nook that I made in our area outside of the kitchen. This is one of the first things I started working on, but because I lost all of the footage on my computer, if you watched last week's video, then you know that a lot of what I'm going to be explaining today is from still shots, so I really apologize that I don't have the step-by-step footage, but I'm going to do my best to walk you through and show you how I was able to transform this space. I don't even think we spent $100 on this completely, but let me show you what we did. If you've been watching for a little while, you know initially when we bought this house, there were cabinets here for a little coffee nook, and I loved that. But it felt weird to me to have the coffee nook so far away from the kitchen. So we ended up taking these cabinets down, moving them to the middle, and I recreated my coffee bar, which I did a video on. So this area was kind of a, what do we do with it? I did like the idea of a dining nook, and I saw this magazine. It was selling, I think, Wayfair tables and chairs, but this gave me the inspiration for the dining nook in this corner. The first thing we did was measure it out so we would know what kind of wood. I did this with basic 2x4s, 1/4-inch plywood so that the fronts would be covered, but we don't need it to be really sturdy in the front because the 2x4s are carrying all the weight. So we decided to save the money on the sheets of plywood because that has gotten so expensive, and we used the thicker plywood for the tops where the seats were going to be and just did the 1/4-inch around the fronts and the facade of this cabinet. Once I knew how much wood we needed, we started framing out the bench portions of them. And if you would like a very detailed explanation of how I did this, there's a YouTuber by the name of Anna White, and I've spoken about her before. She is amazing. She uses very simple designs, but she gives you the step-by-steps, and most of her plans are free. So she did a video on how to make a dining nook, and I liked her explanation and description on how to do them because they were the simplest. So check out that video. I'll have the link in the description below if you would like a more detailed step-by-step, since I no longer have that footage. Once the framing was done, I used simple hinges to create the hinged top so we would have storage access. Now, if you'll notice, there's a strip of wood in the back. This allows it to be flat when you're sitting on it, but has a space for the hinge to sit and the top to come back up. Now, for the decorative element in the front, I used furring strips because these are a super inexpensive item. They range from about 1/4 inch thick to about 1/2 inch, but they are usually 1 inch wide. We bought a pack of 50 for $17 at Menards. They were 4 feet long, so I was able to cut most of them down and use a lot of these to make this a very affordable project. I started by framing the fronts and the sides so that they would have a more built-in decorative element. And I just used my small miter saw, but if you needed to use a miter box with a saw, you could easily do this. This was truly a very quick project. I used wood glue and small finishing nails to tack them to the front. Once the boxes were in place, this was really a finished project, but I wanted to take it a step further, and I added furring strips to the wall. I got out a laser so that I knew where the absolute vertical line was from the end of this, and I used my square to go and space them evenly as I went across. Now, when we got to the corner, I did not want there to be a really deep, awkward spot in the corner part of our bench in that 90-degree area. So I built a mini step ladder, but only one-sided, so that I could place that in the corner so that I would have a support to put a little piece of wood against, so that if someone leans back on it, it's not hollow, it won't give out. But it also gives me a little decorative ledge, and it gives me a place to prop all those pillows up so that it looks a little nicer. But ultimately, I didn't want somebody sitting in that corner piece and having such a great distance from where they're sitting to where the actual back would be. So this, again, is an extra step, but I really felt like it made it look more of a corner built in, and it would be more comfortable to sit in. The other thing that did, though, is it meant I could no longer lift up the cover of the seat to get inside. So I did have to cut the wood just outside of where the angled back piece is so that I could still lift up that bench piece. Once the back was in place, I took an old memory foam cushion that we weren't using anymore and I cut it down. We got some faux leather from Hobby Lobby when it was 40% off, so it was about $6 a yard. And I used the techniques to cover things that I learned from the Posh Paper Lady. So I just cut the square out of the corners, used some spray adhesive to fold them over. If I had any overspray from the spray adhesive from attaching everything, I just used Goo Gone and wiped it off. But this gave me very clean mitered corners because I did not know how to sew a cover that would go over these cushions. So far, these are holding up very well. There is a little bit more of a ripply effect when we do sit on it, but after a few minutes, it just stretches back out and it's okay. For the corner one, I did have to cut off the little corner piece. I have found that an electric knife cuts so much better. I didn't have this unpacked when we first did this, so I used a regular knife. You could see how jagged that is. But an electric knife cuts foam like butter. Absolutely use this if you're cutting foam. I did the same technique of covering this. Now you'll notice here they're in two pieces. After I made these cushions, I realized that every time we opened up the lid, I would have to take the cushions off. I didn't want to have to do that. So by creating a skinny piece in the back and the front section, I can lift up that storage lid and get to anything underneath without having to disassemble my cushions. This is not a necessary step. I just know how I am and I'm very lazy. You'll never believe that, but I really am. I didn't want to have to disassemble taking off the cushions, the pillows, just to get to storage. So for me, taking this extra step now meant it would be super easy anytime I did want to access what's stored inside of these cabinets. Next up was painting. I just used white flat paint. I did notice that the furring strips had a lot of little knots and holes in them. I liked that, but if you don't like the rougher look, the more rustic look, then you'll want to get a higher quality furring strip, which you can easily buy at the stores. I did end up adding decorative molding around the back furring strips, but compared to the original, I think I did a pretty good job going from my inspiration to the reality. For the finishing decorative touches around it, these were windows in my husband's Torrance house for the garage. And when we replaced windows before listing it, we took these out, and I was so excited to add this into our new home so that he has a piece of his childhood home with him always. I was torn about using this black trim around it. Ultimately, I decided it was making it look a little bit more French country, and I didn't want that, so I took it away. But I'm really happy with how this looks. I was also able to add that faux scale I made a few years ago. I love having this in here with a mix of some of the real antiques that my husband has. So I know I probably could have ordered a whole kit online to do this or just bought it directly. But I'm really excited about doing a lot of these things myself for a much lower cost. That gives me a budget to do bigger projects that I'm unable to do. So I hope you found this valuable. And if you've ever been intimidated by doing a woodworking project like this, all I can say is there's so much value in the trial and error. And if you mess up with wood, you can either wood putty fill it, take the screws out, take the nails out, use it for something else. So if you're intimidated, all I can say is dive in. There are so many amazing woodworkers on YouTube who will lessen that fear by giving step-by-steps. And if you think you need a whole woodworking shop, this was done before all of my tools were delivered. So I did this with a small chop saw, the little 6-inch hobby type, and my Ryobi drill. That was it. So it can be done. I say dive in, and you might surprise yourself with the things that you might be able to do going forward. Now, next week's video, you guys, I'm really excited about because it's something that I have been working towards for a long time, and it came around a little bit sooner than I expected, but we had an opportunity and I dove in. So if you've been a longtime viewer, you might already be guessing what it is, but if you're new, please hit that subscribe button so that when I post it, you'll see, but it'll impact you just as much as it does me in a very good way. So I will see you guys next week. Bye.